I had 6 pennies left to my name and a white German Shepherd puppy guarding them like they were gold. We were lying on a piece of cardboard in Henderson, Nevada, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was protecting me. My name is Arthur, and back then I felt more like a shadow than a person. That morning started like all the others. The sun was already warming up the sidewalk, and I was doing what I always did, pretending I didn't notice how thin my blanket had become. I had those 6 pennies lined up on the cardboard just to remind myself I still existed. Then I heard soft claws on concrete and a quiet sniffing sound right by my hand. I opened my eyes and saw him. A scruffy 6-month-old white German Shepherd puppy, ribs showing under the fur, nose twitching over my little row of coins. He didn't look scared of me, just tired, the way only a street dog can look. For a second, I thought he was going to lick the pennies or steal the sandwich crust by my elbow. Instead, he stepped forward, turned once in a slow circle, and lay down sideways across the cardboard, his front paws resting right next to the money. I tried to wave him off at first, told him this was my spot, my piece of the world, even if it was only a patch of stained concrete outside a closed storefront. He blinked at me, yawned, and stayed exactly where he was. So I sighed, pulled my coat back under my shoulder, and said, "Fine. If you want to sleep on nothing with a nobody, be my guest." As the day moved on, the sidewalk filled and emptied the way it always does. Shoes passed inches from my head. Some people glanced down at the cardboard, some pretended not to see us at all. But every time someone's foot drifted too close to those pennies, that puppy lifted his head. He'd shift his paws just a little, sliding them closer over the coins like he was tucking them in. He never barked, never snapped, he just watched, chest pressed against that cardboard like it was his job. By evening, the heat had turned into that tired desert glow, and I was half asleep when trouble finally showed up. A man who smelled like cheap beer staggered over, laughing at something only he could hear. He looked down at my little setup, grinned, and lifted his boot like he was going to stomp right in the middle of our cardboard home, pennies and all. Before I could sit up, the puppy was already on his feet. His body slid between the man's boot and the coins, shoulders low, eyes fixed on that shoe, and then I heard it. The softest, lowest growl, rumbling out of the skinny white chest and hanging in the warm air over 6 tired pennies. I didn't know it yet, but that quiet sound on that Henderson sidewalk was the moment everything started to change for both of us. I didn't think anyone would ever choose me again. But the very next morning, that white German Shepherd puppy trotted back to my corner like he'd punched in for another shift. The street was quiet when I saw his ears first, then his nose, then that serious little face. He walked past the trash can and the smell of food and came straight to my cardboard. He sniffed my boots, then the 6 pennies, then sighed and lay down across the same spot, paws over the coins like he had never left. I remember just staring at him. People looked right through me. I'd stopped expecting kindness. But this dog, this skinny 6-month-old German Shepherd puppy with dust in his fur, had come back on purpose. He was choosing a worn-out man with 6 coins. Around noon, I tore my sandwich in half and pushed the bigger piece toward him. He scooted closer, ate in quick bites, never turning his body away from the pennies. He kept glancing from the pennies to me, like he was asking permission to keep guard over our fortune. I shook my head and muttered, "You're busting your back for 6 pennies, kid." The words stuck in my mouth. Busting. Buster. He flicked one ear when I said it, like he heard his name before I even knew I'd given him one. That night, the air cooled and the streetlights blinked on. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I felt was movement near my bag, hands at the zipper. Before I could sit up, Buster was there, his body wedged between the stranger and our things, chest low and eyes fixed. And in that dim yellow light, I understood he wasn't just guarding pennies anymore. I didn't start out thinking of him as my bodyguard. A few days after he showed up, a group of teenagers stopped at our corner, all noise and sneakers and restless energy. They began tossing spare change toward my cardboard, coins bouncing near my blanket. One boy laughed, stepped closer, and reached down like he was going to scoop a few up by accident. That white German Shepherd puppy didn't bark and he didn't show his teeth. He just stood, slow and solid, and moved his whole body between that hand and our 6 coins. His tail dropped, his ears tipped forward, and his eyes locked on the boy's fingers until the kid pulled his hand back and walked away. What stayed with me was how calm he was. I kept thinking, I'm the one who's supposed to protect him, not the other way around. He was a 6-month-old street dog, and somehow he decided my little pile of nothing was worth guarding. I'd line the coins up and count them under my breath, and he'd slide one paw closer until it almost covered the last penny. When people stopped to stare, he'd lift his head and lean into the space between us and them like he was saying, "Look all you want, but don't touch." One evening, I got a voucher for soup from the shelter downtown. To use it, I had to leave the corner. I looked at Buster, at our board, at that crooked line of pennies. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing the money. I was afraid of coming back and finding only bare concrete where a white dog used to be. I told him I'd be right back and walked away with my heart thudding in my ears. When I turned the corner again, there he was. Same spot, same cardboard, same 6 pennies, chest resting on the edge like he'd never moved. I barely had time to breathe out before a woman with a city badge walked up and said the neighbors were complaining about an aggressive dog on the sidewalk. She told me it wasn't just one complaint. People had called in saying there was a big aggressive dog on the sidewalk, and if it kept happening, animal control would come take a look. While she talked, that white German Shepherd puppy just sat next to my cardboard, head slightly tilted, like he was trying to figure out why anyone would be afraid of him. I nodded like I understood, but inside everything clenched. I didn't have an address or a phone or a clean shirt most days. What I had was a 6-month-old stray who had decided I was his job. For the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't scared of losing my spot or my pennies. I was scared of losing him. After she left, I started watching him the way he'd been watching over me. Every time footsteps came too close, I murmured his name and tapped the ground. "Sit, Buster. Stay, Buster. Easy, boy." He'd glance from my face to the shoes going by, then lower his back end, muscles tight, ready but holding himself in place. My hands were shaking more than his paws were. That night, when the street finally went quiet, I lay on my side facing him. He was half asleep, ears still twitching at every car door and distant shout. I reached out and rested my fingers in the fur of his neck and whispered that if they ever tried to take him, I wouldn't go to any shelter without him. If he stayed on the street, I stayed on the street. He let out this long, tired sigh and shuffled closer until his nose bumped against my chest. The next day, a stranger slowed down, looked us over, and shook his head. "A dog like that belongs in a proper home," he said. "You won't be able to keep him, old man." Turned out that stranger was wrong about one thing. I didn't lose Buster. If anything, the street started losing him a little bit to everybody else. The first small change came from the corner coffee shop. A barista I'd seen 1,000 times but never spoken to walked out on her break holding a cheap plastic bowl. She didn't look at me right away. She knelt in front of that white German Shepherd puppy and said, "For the pup," like I wasn't even there. Then she set the bowl down, poured water from her own bottle, and smiled when he leaned in to drink, ears relaxed for the first time all morning. After that, other people followed her lead. A woman with grocery bags stopped, dug around, and pulled out a little sack of dry dog food. She placed it on the edge of the cardboard, careful not to disturb his paws. "Thought he might like this," she said, nodding at Buster. "Not you, not sir, just he." Like the German Shepherd puppy was the one running the show. My favorite moment was a kid, maybe 7, holding his mom's hand. He stared at Buster with his mouth open, then whispered something I couldn't hear. His mom gave him a coin, and he stepped forward, shaky but determined. He put the coin on the cardboard next to mine, then pulled a small cookie from his pocket and laid it gently by Buster's nose. "That's for his dog," he told his mom, like I was just the assistant. Buster sniffed the cookie, and then, I swear, looked at the boy first before taking it, as if to say thank you. Little by little, people stopped calling me "Hey man" or "Buddy." I started hearing, "Is that your dog?" and "How's your white pup doing today?" They weren't really asking about me, they were checking on him. And strangely, that hurt less than being invisible. If the only way I existed to them was as the man sitting behind the dog, I could live with that. One afternoon, A young woman in a denim jacket stopped short like she'd walked into an invisible wall. She watched Buster for a full minute, him stretched across the cardboard, paws near the coins, eyes tracking every foot that passed. Then she took out her phone. "Do you mind if I record him?" she asked, already moving to get a better angle. She filmed the way he shifted his body when someone stepped too close, the way his ears tipped forward when I said his name. When she finished, she knelt down so we were eye level. "There's this little dog rescue group I follow," she said. "They share stories like yours. Maybe someone can help. Would it be okay if I posted Buster's video there?" I didn't think much about that video after she walked away. Phones and apps and all that stuff feel like another planet when you're sleeping on concrete. But a couple of days later, she came back, breathing a little fast, holding her phone like it was carrying news. She knelt down in front of Buster first, like most people did, and then turned the screen toward me. There he was, my pup, lying across our cardboard, coins under his paws, eyes tracking every foot that passed. Under the video were numbers I didn't understand at first. Then I realized it was thousands of views. Hearts, little dog emojis, comments stacked on top of each other. She scrolled slowly so I could read. People weren't talking about me. They were talking about this stray puppy guarding more than just money. Someone wrote that he was protecting a man's dignity, not his change. Another said they'd never seen a loyal pup take his job so seriously for so little. I'll be honest with you, I wiped my eyes more than once, not because of the hearts or the shares, because for the first time, strangers were seeing Buster the way I saw him every day. The girl smiled and said a small rescue group had shared the clip. She told me one of the teams that make stories about dogs like him wanted to reach out. "They want to see if there's any way to help you two," she said, resting her hand near his shoulder, not quite touching, asking permission. Buster just leaned a little closer to my leg and watched her, calm as ever. That same afternoon, before I could make sense of any of it, the city truck pulled up again. Workers in vests stepped out, and the officer from before walked straight toward our corner. "This block's getting cleared today," he said, not looking at Buster or the Pennies. "You can't stay here anymore." Cleanup days always sounded harmless until it was your corner they were cleaning. The truck doors slammed, and men in bright vests spilled out with black trash bags and grabbers, talking fast, pointing at piles of broken things that used to belong to someone. They moved down the block like a storm, scooping up blankets, boxes, anything that wasn't nailed down. Buster watched them with that steady stare of his body pressed close to our piece of cardboard. One of the workers stepped over, eyes on my little setup. He didn't ask, just bent down, fingers closing on the edge of the cardboard, ready to fold my whole life into a trash bag along with the pennies. Before I could say a word, Buster slid forward like water. He stretched himself across the board, chest low, paws planted right over the coins. He lifted his head and looked that grown man straight in the face. No sound, no teeth, just this hard, clear message that this wasn't garbage. The worker hesitated, then glanced at the officer. The officer rolled his eyes and took a step closer. "If that dog keeps acting like this, I'm calling animal control," he said. My stomach dropped, but my heart did something strange too. I wanted to tell Buster to move, to be a good boy, to make everyone feel safe. But another part of me was quietly begging him, "Don't you dare leave me, not even for them." Right then, a little blue car pulled up to the curb. It was the same girl with the denim jacket, the one who had filmed him. She hurried over, phone in her hand, breathless, saying she'd been talking to a group trying to find pet-friendly housing. "They're looking for a place that will take both of you," she said. "They're ready to come meet you today." The officer listened, arms crossed, then looked back at me and at Buster stretched over that cardboard. "Fine," he said. "You've got until this evening to be gone from this spot." He nodded at my pup, voice flat. "Otherwise, we take the dog." I wish I could tell you I was brave about it. Truth is, a part of me wanted to dig my heels into that sidewalk and stay put. When you've lost as much as I had, even a bad corner can feel safer than a big question mark. I sat there, looking at our little world, the stained concrete, the cracked wall behind us, the 6 pennies lined up on that bent piece of cardboard, and Buster lying across it like a small white shield. For months, that had been the only stable thing I had left. A patch of sidewalk and a puppy who had decided I was his person. The girl in the denim jacket came back, this time holding her phone like it mattered. She crouched down near Buster and tapped the screen. A man's face appeared, calm and tired in the way people who do real work always look. He said he was calling from a nonprofit that worked with a program for people with dogs. No fancy words, just steady ones. He explained it simple. They'd found a spot in a temporary housing program that allowed pets. We'd get a room, a door, access to showers, maybe a caseworker. But the rule was clear. If we took it, we had to leave this corner today. No drifting back, no half in, half out, me and my dog together, or not at all. My chest felt tight. That spot of sidewalk had become a strange kind of home. I knew where the shade hit, where the noise slowed at night, which faces to avoid. Out there, in some new place, I didn't know anything. I looked at Buster and thought, what if they change their mind? What if someone decides he doesn't belong? I must have been quiet too long because Buster suddenly stood up. He walked over to my small bag, the one with everything I owned folded into it. He grabbed the strap gently in his teeth and gave it a tug toward the curb where her car was parked. Then he glanced back at me, eyes steady like he was saying, "Come on, old man, we're done here." So I took a breath, pushed my knees under me and stood up. I didn't pick up the pennies. I left them lying there under the fading outline of his paws. My first step away from that cardboard felt like stepping off a ledge, but I knew exactly what I was choosing. For the first time in a long time, I walked away from the money and followed the dog. The drive over felt shorter than it probably was. I sat in the passenger seat clutching my bag, and Buster sat in the back, nose pressed to the window, like he was trying to memorize every turn in case we had to find our way back. The building they took us to wasn't fancy, but to me it looked unreal. There was a front door that shut all the way, a hallway that didn't smell like exhaust, and a room with 4 walls that belonged to us for a while. Inside, there was a bed with a real mattress, a thin blanket folded at the end, a small bathroom with a shower, and in the corner, someone had already put down a metal bowl for the dog. Buster walked in circles at first, nails clicking on the floor. He kept drifting back to me like he thought I might disappear if he looked away too long. He sniffed the bowl, the bed, the door, then came back and leaned his side against my leg, waiting for me to tell him what needed guarding. For once, there wasn't anything. No pennies, no cardboard, no feet passing inches from his nose. When night came, they told me to get some real sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I'd stolen something that wasn't mine. In the end, I took the pillow, dropped it on the floor, and lay down beside Buster instead. Old habits die slow, and it felt wrong to be above him. Sometime before morning, I must have drifted off. When I opened my eyes, there was sunlight sneaking through the blinds and quiet everywhere. Buster wasn't stretched over coins or curled in a tight ball ready to move. He was on his back, paws loose in the air, mouth slightly open, fast asleep like any regular tired puppy who finally didn't have a job to do. A little later, one of the staff from the rescue group stopped by our room. They watched him snoring on the floor and smiled. They said there was one more idea they wanted to try. What if, once he settled in a bit, we brought Buster over to their shelter and let him lie next to a donation jar so people could meet the dog who used to guard 6 pennies? A week later, they brought us to the shelter for the first time. Right inside the front door on the counter, they set out a clear plastic jar with a handwritten label that said, "For dogs like Buster." They laid down a clean rug beside the desk and looked at me. "Think he'd be okay hanging out here for a while?" they asked. I just nodded and watched as my white German Shepherd puppy stepped onto that soft mat like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be comfortable. He circled once, like he used to do on the cardboard, then lay down with his front paws stretched out toward the jar. Instead of covering 6 pennies, he was now resting next to a jar that started out almost empty. His eyes followed the door, not with fear this time, but with that same steady focus he had on the sidewalk in Henderson, Nevada. People started coming in, one by one. Some were there to adopt, some to drop off food, some just to look. Almost all of them stopped when they saw him. They'd read the sign, glance at the jar, then ask, "Is that the little guardian from the video?" They'd drop in bills and coins, then ask if they could pet him. Buster handled it like he'd been doing this his whole life. He stayed close to the jar, tail giving slow, gentle thumps, letting kids rub his ears and older folks rest their hands on his back. Every time someone's fingers brushed the side of the jar, his eyes flicked there for a second, not to protect it from them, but like he was keeping track of every bit of help being offered. The moment that broke me was a small boy with a serious face and pockets that jingled. He came up holding his dad's hand, staring at Buster like he was looking at a superhero. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a few coins, and dropped them into the jar one by one. Then he leaned close to Buster's ear and whispered, "Now you're guarding all the dogs here, not just your old man's pennies." I felt something shift inside me when he said that. Our story wasn't just about me on a sidewalk anymore. That scruffy pup who once lay across 6 coins was now helping fill a whole jar for other animals who hadn't even met him. He was still a guardian, but the circle he was guarding had grown bigger than the two of us. Not long after that, one of the staff pulled me aside. They said a team called Brave Paws had seen his story and wanted to know if I'd be willing to sit down in front of a camera. They wanted me to tell the world about the dog who went from protecting my last pennies to helping save other dogs too. Right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm sitting in a warm little room with a roof over my head and that same white pup asleep at my feet. There's a microphone in front of me instead of a cardboard sign, and when the red light came on, Buster just sighed and pressed his shoulder into my boot like he always does. We've got things I never thought I'd have again. A door that locks. A bed that belongs to us. Doctors who check on my lungs. A bowl that gets filled on purpose, not by accident. None of that dropped out of the sky. It came because people stopped for a moment and watched a short video of a dog lying across 6 pennies on a hot sidewalk in Henderson, Nevada. I want you to hear this from me. I'm not the hero of this story. I'm just an old man who was tired and broke and out of places to go. The one who made anything change was the dog who decided that a man with almost nothing was still worth guarding. He's the one who kept his body between the world and our little pile of coins like it mattered. When you shared that clip, when you left comments and little hearts and showed it to your friends, you weren't lifting me up. You were lifting him. You were saying you saw the same thing I saw when I looked down at that scrap of cardboard every day. A small, stubborn friend who refused to let go. I need to say thank you to Brave Paws for that. To the people behind the cameras and emails who didn't just film Buster and walk away, but found a place that would take both of us. And to you, the ones watching these dog stories, crying over dogs you've never met, hitting share when it would be easier to scroll past. You're part of why he's sleeping safe tonight. There is one thing, more than anything else, that I want to leave with you from our little corner of the world. One thought that keeps me up some nights, in a good way, when I listen to Buster breathing by the bed and remember those 6 pennies under his paws. Here's what I keep coming back to. Buster was never guarding 6 pennies. He was guarding me. He was guarding whatever little bit of dignity and connection we had left on that strip of concrete. Without people like you, without this YouTube family around Brave Paws, that bond between a tired man and his street dog could have just faded into the sidewalk and disappeared. When I think about everything that changed, I see him first. Him stretched over the cardboard, him lying next to that donation jar, him snoring at my feet while this mic light is on. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. They didn't just rescue a dog, they rescued the only friendship I had left and gave it a place to grow. And I want you to remember something else. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. It's picking up the leash on the hard days. It's brushing out street dust from his fur. It's showing up with food, with medicine, with patience and soft words long after the cameras are gone. So please don't look away when you see someone sitting on the ground with a dog curled against them. Don't scroll past the next clip of a scared pup in a shelter. Every repost, every view, every dollar in a jar, every quiet conversation about dogs like Buster helps another pair like us step off the sidewalk and into a safer place. And if you have your own story about a dog who stayed, who protected, who refused to give up on you, I hope you'll share it. You can write to the email in the description of this Brave Paws channel, so maybe the next story we tell here will be yours. Thank you, Brave Paws family. Be their voice. Be their hope.